It is Locked On Jazz for the 23rd of August. We're back, and Ron Boone rejoins us for part two of the interview. We'll look at the Jazz offseason moves and if they got better. But first, we'll break down the Jazz schedule and one aspect of it that's brutal or a blessing. You'll decide. It's all coming up on today's edition of Locked On Jazz. Pow!
You are Locked On Jazz, your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi, I'm David Locke, radio voice of the Utah Jazz, Jazz NBA insider. This is Locked On Jazz, your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz, giving you insight, expertise, geeky numbers, and hopefully making it way better to be a Jazz fan each and every day. Today's show is brought to you by Rock Auto. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. Visit rockauto.com and tell them Locked On sent you. My apologies, best intentions. With the YouTube stuff, some of this is actually a little more complicated to get the videos up, particularly when I'm doing these interviews, and we were in Texas for golf, and I just couldn't get it done. So my apologies on that. I thought I was going to get it done. Here's the plan if it goes as expected. Today we'll have Ron Boone on. Wednesday, Ron Boone, and then Thursday, I think it will be Andy Larson joins the program for his interview series, and then Andy will roll into next week. So we'll have 3 days a week up this week, hopefully, for you. But the schedule is out. It's getting real. We're awfully close and super exciting. Boy, is the NBA getting good at the schedule game. They've improved so much. We know 4 games in 5 nights. We're down to 13 back-to-backs, which really isn't a lot. 4 of those are non-travel back-to-backs on our part. So, we're kind of right in the league average on all these things. Travel is way down. No 4 games in 5 nights for anyone. We have a few little bizarre sequences. Like, you look at, and hey, when they're putting together 82 games, it's going to happen. I mean, we play in New Orleans on the 3rd of January, come back to Denver on the 5th, and then go to Toronto on the 7th. So the old Utah to New Orleans to Denver, Toronto, and then have Indiana on a back end of a back-to-back coming out of Toronto, which is brutal. The one nice thing that they've done is they've really gotten cognizant of time zones. They've gotten cognizant of West going on a back end of a back-to-back from LA to Utah is brutal. LA to Denver is brutal. We don't seem to have those out there. There's not, I'm sure I missed one. But late in the year, we play Memphis, Oklahoma City back-to-back. We play both games at home. We play New Orleans, both games back-to-back, but they're both at home. You look at our back-to-backs, there are actually an interesting thing I'll get into here in a second on those. And you can then decide. That's the thing that's either brutal or a blessing. You decide. But if you look at them, we're not like Miami, Orlando, Chicago, Milwaukee. They're not brutal. The league has really begun to get very, very good at this. New Orleans, I mentioned, both those are at home. Minnesota to Philadelphia is not great. That's heading the wrong direction, okay? So that's one. Cleveland and Minnesota, Philadelphia, then to Washington. That's heading the wrong direction. Minnesota to Philadelphia on that back-to-back. But otherwise, home back-to-backs, which they never used to have, and certainly much less burdensome. Toronto to Indiana, I mentioned, is only bad because you're going through customs to get out of Toronto, which takes a little longer than otherwise. But it's not, it's much worse if you're going into Toronto for that back-to-back. So that's good. At Golden State, at Phoenix is the one time when we do that sequence where we go west to east on the schedule. So that's much better. Frankly, we got a break. We only play the Clippers 3 times. We only play the Lakers 3 times. I'm sure our ticket people don't think that's a break because you want to have those teams, as many games as you can against those. And our TV ratings don't think it's a break. But from a scheduling standpoint, that is certainly a break. We have a bunch of early road trips, which I always feel like we've dealt with pretty well. We have continuity. It gets the team together early. It's better for ticket sales. Ticket sales are hard early in the season. We have a bunch of single early October home games. Oklahoma City, Denver, and Sacramento. I guess Sacramento is into November before an extended homestand. That's another signature. We have 4 really, really long homestands, which means if you have friends that are season ticket holders, they'll be looking to move their seats because season ticket holders don't usually go to all 5 games of a homestand. So that'll be good for you if you want to get to games. But we play a 5-game homestand early in November. We play a 6-game homestand in December. We play a 6-game homestand in February, a 4-game extended homestand in March. And then we play 4 of 5 at home with a little trip out to the Warriors in April. So a lot of extended stretches there of home games. Here's the thing that's either a blessing or brutal, depending which way you look at it. The back end of our back-to-backs are against the best teams in the NBA, which either means, hey, we were going to lose these games anyway in all likelihood, so you might as well put them on the back end of back-to-back and not go lose to Minnesota because you're on a back. Oh, wait, we did that 3 times. Washington. Wait, oh, sorry, 2 bad examples. But you understand my point. You don't want to go play Houston or Oklahoma City or someone that if you're going to win the West this year or be an elite team in the West, you're going to have to win all your 4 games against Oklahoma City. Like this is, I know we all love the games against Milwaukee and Philadelphia and Brooklyn and the Lakers and Phoenix, and those are like their litmus test games. We get all into the fact of the matter is, if you're going to win your conference and get home court advantage, it's actually Houston, Oklahoma City, Minnesota. I know we didn't do it last year. Those games, Charlotte, who's actually not bad, but you got my point. Those games are actually the ones that are most important. So look at our back-to-backs. We are back-to-back at Milwaukee. Like, that's a loss on the schedule. So Mike Conley doesn't play. Rudy Gay might not play on the back end of a back-to-back, and you lose. Then our back-to-back is New Orleans, home, no big deal. Our next, we have an at Orlando back-to-back. Like, that's the one you don't want, frankly. You're at Miami, you go to Orlando tired. Luckily, it's a short flight. And, you know, you just cannot afford to lose that game to Orlando. The next one is kind of down the road is we play at Minnesota. First game, let's go get that win. That's important. Then at Philadelphia. We haven't won in Philadelphia. At least my memory, and I have terrible game recall. But I don't feel like we win in Philadelphia an awful lot. Like, that's not a great place for us. Okay, well, that's probably the 3rd best team. So we play the best team in the East, the 3rd best team in the East on back end of back-to-backs on the road. Frankly, I'd rather have that than playing at Washington on a back-to-back because I want to, like, that road trip is at Cleveland, got to win, at Minnesota, let the back-to-back Philadelphia go and beat Washington, come home 3-4 on that road trip. It's gravy. I actually think this is strangely a blessing. We're home for the next back-to-back. Then you keep running down. We play back-to-back, both of them at home, non-travel back-to-back. Then we go Toronto to Indiana. We've talked about that. That's not, there's nothing to, that's a game you probably want to win. So I actually don't like that kind of back-to-back. Then we play at LA on a back-to-back, at Denver on the front end. And this is brutal. At Denver, at LA, with the LA game being NBA TNT. Like, it's a pretty long flight. Seems like a pretty brutal sequence there. Maybe Mike Conley, Rudy Gay, Joe Ingles all rest against the Lakers. So it's an NBA TV game, and they won't love that. You come back, you go to at Golden State, and then at Phoenix. Well, let's go try to get Denver. Let's go try to get Golden State. Then you go to Phoenix. So, I mean, you literally play the best team. The 3 best teams in the West are probably, Phoenix, LA, Denver, Utah, 4, Clippers. We got a bunch of them on the back-to-back. The best teams on the East are Milwaukee and Philadelphia, and then Brooklyn. And sure, lo and behold, you're going to see here later that we're heading on the 21st. We play at New York and then at Brooklyn. Now, maybe that's a little different because of the fact that it's a non-travel back-to-back. But again, just on the fatigue, that trip is at New York, at Brooklyn. Fine, let it go. At Boston, at Charlotte, at Dallas, and then at LA. That's a weird one where we actually literally start in New York and finish in Los Angeles. That is a brutally long trip. Come home for one and then go back to Golden State, which is a little funky late in the season. There'll be some fatigue there, but the reason that is because we're on TNT, so you can't ask for it both ways, right? We want these games, we want this national television stuff, and then here you have that, and then the final back-to-backs at home. So is at Dallas. We have another road trip at Phoenix, first game of the trip. Let's get the win. At Houston, let's get the win. At New Orleans, get the win. At Oklahoma City, get the win. Then at Dallas on the back end of back-to-back. Maybe I'll let that go. So we literally play the best teams in the NBA on the back end of back-to-backs. I'm not sure that's a terrible thing. Kind of a weird way to look at it. And the most noticeable thing in the schedule, I buried the lead, Christmas Day against Dallas. Unbelievable. Seems like they're rotating us and the Denver Nuggets for those Christmas Day games. That's amazing. Christmas Day NBA is the best. The whole league's watching. To have it at home, and the night game's the best one of the group because you get the whole time with the family. Just totally amazing. Absolutely fired up for Christmas Day against the Dallas Mavericks. Christmas against Portland is one of the most fun regular season games that didn't have some other like Kobe's last game or Kobe dropping 50 or like when the game started, like before the night started. That's one of the most favorite games I've ever called in the regular season. So that's the schedule look. Ron Boone comes up to talk about the team, what was built, the offseason, what was done, and we'll get his thoughts on all of it. It's all coming up here on Locked On Jazz. Remember, free and on all platforms for you. You can subscribe on YouTube. Today's show is brought to you by my good friends at Murdoch Hyundai, located at 4646 South State Street, also located in Logan and in Linden. I'm driving the Sonata. I can't figure out how to open the trunk, but otherwise it's perfect. How do you open the trunk of the Sonata? I can't figure it out. I'm not smart enough. But it's beautiful. It drives fabulously. The gas mileage is amazing. Both the Elantra and Sonata sedans have blown me away recently. We own two of the Santa Fe, so they already won me over on that. The Zippy Kona, as well as the Tucson and the beautiful Palisade. So if you're going to head over there to Murdoch Hyundai, feel free to reach out, get in contact with me, and I'll set you up with a meeting with the guys over at Murdoch Hyundai, located at 4646 South State Street in Murray, or in Linden, or in Logan. Make sure you tell me where you're heading. That'll speed up the process, and I'll get you aboard at Murdoch Hyundai. Today's show is also brought to you by Sweat Block Wipes. This is a really cool product. Sweat Block Wipes allows you to wear what you want, have a little secret confidence in your day. Everyone should have it in their toiletry bag because if you're an excessive sweater, it's the answer. But if you also have a big presentation or a hot date, and you don't want to sweat through, or it might be in your humid area. Oh my God, Dallas was brutal. You have the answer here with Sweat Block Wipes. Doctor created and doctor recommended, works up to 7 days per usage. It's got the dry shirt guarantee. If it doesn't keep you dry, you get your money back. It's been featured on Rachel Ray. It's actually been on Amazon for the last 10 years, but they're coming out to really let everyone know now. Manufactured in the U.S. So Sweat Block is stronger and more effective than most clinical antiperspirants, and you simply apply it at night before going to bed. Next morning, you wake up and wash and go about your day, and you are sweat-free, guaranteed. Get 20% off at sweatblock.com with the promo code Locked On. That's 20% off with the promo code Locked On. Time for day two with the great Ron Boone. He'll be on the phone with us. We've gotten away from doing video with Ron because I don't like being the second best looking guy in a picture. No, I don't know. By the way, Ron, there's one picture I'll throw up here. It's like taken from like our first year together. It was a 97.5, the Zone like promotional thing. Like you look the same and I look 13 years older. And I don't know why that is, but it seems completely unfair.
Did I have hair, David?
No, you had a little tiny mustache. Not anywhere near. Like
okay.
I got one picture here where you have got like a really good like a thick mustache going. It's in an old NBA hoops card. I think you should bring that one back.
I don't know if I can. David, that's the great thing the best thing about the way my skin is right now is that I don't have to shave that often. And I was 38 years old before I shaved first time, so hair is not anything that I can just demand, to make something like that happen. I grow a beard. I can't grow a mustache and all that kind of stuff, which is fine with me.
All right. So we've had a good first day, kind of looking back a little bit. Now we look forward on how things are looking at. You brought up some interesting concepts about Rudy Gobert and Hassan Whiteside. So let's start there, unless you're going to take me somewhere else for all I know. So you brought up the idea that Rudy plays a few less minutes. There is kind of an ongoing discussion amongst the Jazz of like, what's the maximum way to get stuff out of Rudy? Like, can he go 40? Can he go 42? Are you better off keeping him to 35? It's clear that Rudy likes the 3 stints that he played in last year, where he played 6 and then 5 and then 6. So elaborate a little bit more if you can on what you were saying about kind of Hassan Whiteside's addition at the end of our last episode.
Okay. So I totally agree with giving Rudy probably what he wants and how he thinks that he's been effective. If Rudy looks back and he starts looking at his numbers and starts looking at the impact he was making defensively and offensively for the team in those 3 stints, he's probably going to want to keep that. Now, you got Hassan Whiteside coming in, and that's the person we got to look at there. How effective can he be? Because Derek Favors is playing about, 14, 15 minutes a game at the most. There's probably a few games where he played over 20 or somewhere in there. But I think he averaged, David, during the course of the year, about 14, 15 minutes a game, somewhere in there. So if that's the case, how effective or can Hassan Whiteside be with 15 minutes on the floor? And I'm asking this question because I'm thinking that some players need more minutes in order to get into the floor of the basketball game and make themselves relevant out there on the floor to the point where they're getting stuff done and the team is not losing anything and that type of thing. I don't know if Whiteside is that kind of player, if he needs to be on the floor a lot longer. But if that's going to be the case with Rudy with those 3 stints, how many minutes does Hassan Whiteside need to be effective for the Jazz?
This is why you're so good, by the way, because I had not thought about this at all. You're absolutely right. Like, if you look at his 5 years in Miami, he's starting most of the games. He starts 32 of 48 his first year, 43 of 73 the next year, all 77, then all 54, then 53 of 27. He's playing 23 minutes at the minimum. He played 33 one year. Then he goes to Portland, where he has probably his best year of his career. He averages 3 blocks. He leads the league. He averages 16 points, 14 rebounds. I mean, he's great in Portland, but he's played 30 minutes a night. Goes to Sacramento last year playing 15. It's a disaster. Like, you're right. Like, here's a player who kind of the negative on him in his career is whether or not he's been kind of engaged all the time. So now do you suddenly get a guy who's not engaged all the time and he's playing limited times. And so he's not checked in. Like, that's that's an interesting question. I had really just looked at Whiteside and the success he had in Portland in an almost identical system and thought to myself, you know what, this might work.
Yeah, I think it's going to work. I think Quinn is going to be smart enough to make it work for him to the point where he's effective. Now, Quinn's pretty smart, I think. And I think the concept that they use with giving Rudy the 3 stints out there on the floor, and I know a lot of that had to do with Derek Favors. But, well, I don't know. This is going to be interesting to see how effective he can be in a short period of time. But let me ask you some questions here, David, because there's other things that
So you're interviewing me now, huh?
Yeah, I'm interviewing you. Are you okay with that?
I like to control the conversation much more, but I'll let you go.
Too bad. Okay, so let's look at our roster that we had last year, and the players that we had and what they were able to do, and the type of and why. Let's see, how am I putting this? And why they were good in this system. And so my question to you is how many players on this team that they had last year were system players? I mean, they were good because of Quinn's system, and that's what made the Jazz, win 52 ball games. Helped the Jazz win 52 ball games last year.
How many of the players on this team were system players, you're asking? Yeah.
There is such a thing, and we can probably name a few players that have gone around the league that have been in a system. They flourished. They've done a lot of things. They went to another team, into another system, and they kind of disappear.
So I think George Niang was a system player.
Great. That's one, yeah.
I think Jordan Clarkson is a system player in this sense. He's been given a level of freedom inside the system that he's never had before. And I think that's allowed him to succeed. The other is he's not a great defensive player. And what I think is the unknown thing talked about the Jazz, it's like the easiest defensive system in the world. Like, funnel
Mhm.
your guy to Rudy, right? Like, and I think that got exposed when suddenly there wasn't a Rudy to funnel you to because the Clippers went to 5 out and guys suddenly had to guard their yard. I think they really had a hard time. And so in some ways, I kind of feel like a lot of the guys on our roster, unfortunately, are system players on the defensive end more than the offensive end. How's that for an answer, Ron Boone?
That's pretty good because I hadn't thought about that either. I was looking mostly on the opposite end of the floor, but thinking, okay, that's a great way of putting it there. And so there are a couple of, and Jordan Clarkson was one of them that I thought because of the freedom that he had, and he had never had that type of freedom before, and it wasn't like we're bringing this up. He admitted to that, and he was very comfortable with it. 6th man of the year. I mean, that type of, so he'll probably still have that type of freedom this year as a system player, I think. But I just think it's important to have those type of guys. And I've had some conversations with some others about Joe Ingles. Joe Ingles is very, very good in this system. And when I started hearing some rumors about some trades, and I was saying, oh no, don't let that happen. Hopefully it doesn't. But I think he plays very, very well in this system, and I'm just short of calling him a system player in this team.
Do you think that don't trade Joe Ingles because he's so valuable to the way we play, or don't trade Joe Ingles because he's so dependent on this team and the way we play that he wouldn't be successful elsewhere?
And that's something that I've given some thought there too as well. I tried to watch how he played in the Olympics and what value he brought to the team with the Olympics. I really think that he could be effective in a short period of time on the floor. But I really think that the options that Quinn has with him makes him just short of being what I'd call a system player. Now, the flat out system player was George Niang, that's for sure. And George and Joe Ingles is nowhere near close to that.
I have a thought on this system discussion, and I will bring it up in our next segment with Ron Boone here on Locked On Jazz as we continue. Fun little question for Ron Boone around Quinn Snyder and system coming up next as we continue here on Locked On Jazz. Ron Boone is simply the best. Send him a thank you at 1041 straight. We always appreciate him taking the time. Today dealt with some technical stuff to do it on the phone instead, but greatly appreciate it. Hey, the NBA opening games are already up on betonline.ag, but there's some other great stuff going on as well over at betonline.ag. It's the time of the year. All eyes turn to football as teams are back on the gridiron. And as always, BetOnline is your number one spot for all pro and college football action. Get all your odds, props, and contests, including the online biggest $500,000 NFL mega contest at the world's largest $200,000 NFL Survivor contest. Open now at BetOnline. Head to the website or use the mobile device. Sign up today and receive a 100% welcome bonus. Usually Locked On gets you 50%, but right now you can get a 100% welcome bonus. Be sure to take advantage of the opening day super promo. Make a bet on Thursday, September 9th opener between Super Bowl champion Buccaneers and the Cowboys. And if you lose, your wager will be refunded up to $25 for new customers only when signing up with the new promo code NFL100. BetOnline is the fastest, easiest way to bet for all your favorite sports, from basketball to football to boxing to your favorite Vegas casino games. Don't wait. Take advantage of all the great offers available for the 2021 season. BetOnline, your online sportsbook experts. Today's show is also brought to you by Rock Auto, the family-owned business that for 20 years has been giving the do-it-yourselfer and the professional the same rates. Save time and save money. There's no reason to spend 30, 50, or 100% more on some of the parts from a chain or a car dealership. Rock Auto is a family business serving you for the last 20 years, so prices are reliably low for every customer. Whether it's brake pads or tail lamps or motor oil, or even new carpet, we let you find what you need at an easily navigated site, kind of an old school, explore and easy site. Go check it out at rockauto.com. Find the solution for your auto part needs. Go to rockauto.com right now. See all the parts available for your car or truck, right? Rock Auto in the How'd You Hear About Us box, so they know who sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. rockauto.com. So you brought up the idea of a system player in the last segment, which was not entirely where we intended to go because you took over the show. So I'm taking it back over here for a second, Mr. Boone. How much less of a system are the Jazz running now under Quinn Snyder than they did in the past? And how much of this is more Quinn like releasing these guys to just like when he first had this team, he didn't have a lot of talent and he had to run 8 million picks and 5,000 passes and try to create something. How much of this is less system than it ever used to be?
It's a ton. I'm going to say 50% less. And I'm saying that because of the freedom now that not only is he giving Jordan Clarkson, but he's giving other players there as well. When first took over this basketball team, and I think you and I discussed this so often because we sit there and watch practice. We watch practice. You remember that, Dave? Remember those days?
I hope we get to do it again.
But it was so much teaching there with Quinn in those first couple of years that he had to have a stricter type system in order to stay in ball games, to make players, not give players as much freedom, but how to make them effective. So I totally agree with you there because I think it's 50% less system now, or maybe even more than that, the way the team is run right now. Great point for you.
All right, let's go through. So we talked about Hassan Whiteside and that pickup. I had a hard time evaluating Derek Favors all year. He didn't move great, but you're backing up Rudy. Nobody looks right when they back up Rudy. Do you think Whiteside, simply by being 7 feet with a 7'7" reach, just has more of an impact than Favors did this last year?
Yes, defensively for sure, and maybe you can help me out there with his numbers as far as blocking shots, or does he have the ability just to change shots? I know he was in competition with Rudy at one time about block shots per game.
Yep.
And so I really think, I do think that Derek Favors last year, even though he was 15 minutes a game, he was still averaging close to 6 rebounds a game. Whiteside will be able to duplicate that, don't you think? Offensively,
particularly on the offensive end, he's such a good offensive rebounder.
So that's where he's going to be more valuable, I think, than Derek Favors was last year. Because if you're thinking that defensively we can get the same thing out of him in a short period of time and be effective as we do with Rudy, it's going to be the offense that he can give the Jazz more so than Derek Favors.
Okay. Let's go to the next big signing, which was the Rudy Gay signing. And that's, really replacing George Niang, but probably being more versatile to be able to do more things. He turns 36 years old here, or just has turned 36 years old. So that is not a youngster that the Jazz just got in Rudy. Or excuse me, he turned 35. I don't mean to make him a year older. What's your thoughts on picking up the 35-year-old version of Rudy Gay?
I really don't have a problem with it. Hopefully, again, not knowing the amount of minutes he's going to get out there on the floor and how effective he can be with the type of minutes that he's getting. He's going to be getting more than George Niang was able to get out there on the floor. He's probably going to be able to do more. So more is good, I think, for that position. And at 35, 36 years old, I think he's like what I saw when we played him against San Antonio. I think, if I remember correctly, if I'm looking at some numbers there a couple of weeks ago, 3-point shooting wasn't very good. And he's going to have to be effective. He's going to have to be a threat. In other words, let Rudy let Rudy Gay shoot threes that he can't make them. We don't want to hear that. We want to make sure that they're challenging him at the 3-point line. But again, it's a move that was made in order to keep this team strong enough in the Western Conference to win it.
And George Niang had a wonderful season, hit 44% of his threes, was absolutely great. In the playoffs, though, he looked like he just was a fish out of water. Like the game got too fast. Will Rudy Gay be able to handle that better?
Strictly because Rudy Gay will be able to give you more than just 3-point shooting. If Rudy Gay turns out to be a pretty good 3-point shooter, I mean, if he's a 34, 35%, 36% 3-point shooter, I mean, that's giving him something great from that 3-point line. But the other part of his game is going to be better than what we were getting from George Niang. George Niang wasn't a very good dribbler. He could put the ball on the floor, make some things happen. Defensively, he was awfully slow of foot. And that was a player that I felt Quinn had to hide a little bit defensively in order to, keep him from getting beat up as much out there on the floor. So I think you'll be able to get more out of Rudy Gay than what you're getting out of George Niang. Now, did the numbers add up, David, as far as Rudy and George Niang? I mean, I know Rudy Gay is on the downside of his career. So numbers as far as money, do they match up? I'm sorry, I didn't explain myself right.
Rudy Gay, I think, got paid more than George Niang, but with the mid-level. But I think, you take the Favors money, and Favors Niang and Favors is significantly more money than Gay and Whiteside. We still got we still have a $40 million cap hit though, so it's not like anyone's being cheap around here. There's the amount of spending that's going on with this team to me is astronomical.
Over the cap,
like by a lot. Do you realize that? I don't think fans realize this. Do you realize how the luxury tax works? You're writing a check on one day.
Say that again.
What
do you mean you're writing a check on one day?
Like when you have a luxury $40 million luxury tax, you have to write a $40 million check to the league.
Oh yeah.
In one day.
Oh yeah, that's like in July or something, isn't it? When oh my goodness.
Right.
That's a lot of zeros, David.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I thought you were going to say on the numbers on Rudy Gay offensively, do they match up? And it's honestly like it's actually a pretty big step down, or not pretty big, but it's a step down from George Niang. If you're just isolating that, Rudy Gay last year was kind of a below average offensive efficiency player. George Niang was actually a pretty good offensive player just because, you shoot that level from three, you have a pretty good year, you shoot 43% from three. And Favors was a pretty high level efficiency offensive player. He shot 77% on 2-point shots last year. He ended up shooting 64%. So like Hassan Whiteside, who in Portland 2 years ago definitely is kind of the year that we're hoping he's going to be able to have. Rudy Gay's year, he's got to be now. Now Rudy Gay also played on a team that didn't shoot threes, so that's a weird concept. I'm not sure how you deal with that.
Yeah, that's what's going to be interesting there is the fact that now he has the freedom to shoot those threes, and will it get better? Because when just think about this, David, if you go to the free throw line and you're 3 for 4, what percentage is that?
75. Last time I checked. I passed math, Ron.
Okay, well, what if you go 1 for 4?
25%.
Which is more likely from the 3-point line, unless you're just a flat out dead eye 3-point shooter. So the number of threes that he'll probably end up getting per game is going to probably be more than what he was getting down there in San Antonio. So hopefully he gets better at that. I mean, it's the simple math. If you go to the free throw line a ton of times, that, and you miss a couple, that percentage is not going to drop that much. But if you go a few times and you miss 2 or 3, then that percentage is not going to be very good.
Well, you watched some summer league, and you watched. both Vegas and Salt Lake Summer League. Did anything jump out to you? What do you think of any of our guys there that jumped out to you at all?
Well, obviously Forrest looks good. And I watched a couple of games on TV, and Brantley seems to have a little freedom where he's trying to do a little bit more. It's awfully hard to tell or find what you're looking for, I think, in games like that. But what stands out is probably Brantley and Forrester. I keep saying Forrester, but I guess I haven't seen enough of those. I went to the games here, and it's kind of fun to watch. Just seeing guys that working very, very hard, trying to do the right things out there on the floor, and but like you, it's awfully hard, I think, in summer league to say who's going to be effective and who's going to make the team, who's going to demand playing time, that type of thing. So.
I mean, sometimes I feel like the key on summer league is just make sure they weren't bad, right? Like if you're bad in summer league, that feels like that's a bad thing. The other side of this, though, I would say like Udoka has looked really interesting in summer league, and I try to figure out what it means. But then like there haven't been a lot of guards with any wiggle. Like he's big, he's massive, he blocks shots, he bothers things. But I want to see a guard with some wiggle and see if he can move a little bit either side to side. But you don't ever get a chance to do that in summer league.
Well, I would like to see, Rudy doesn't have any moves with the ball. You can't rely on Rudy to play with his back to the basket. You can't rely on him to come across the lane, catch it, maybe shoot a little jump shot, a little jump hook or something like that, just to change up the offense and everything. I'd like to see if Udoka can do those things.
Right.
And I'm watching block shots with the help defense is awfully good. I think that if he was to get some minutes with the Jazz this year, defense is probably where he's going to show how he can help the team the most right now, because I haven't seen anything else. Every point, for the most part, that he got during the summer league games, and what I've seen has been dunks off dribble penetration, dishing off to him, he dunks the basketball. So I'd like to see a little bit more out of him. And maybe, David, we're looking for something from him way too early. Maybe he's 2 or 3 years down the road from being an effective player.
Be interesting. It's a hard question. I don't have a great vibe on him. Trent Forrest, you're right. He's been nice. He's still, he's got to be able to make shots on that. All right, I've been dying to ask Ron Boone this question. We'll do it tomorrow on the show. Russell Westbrook to the Lakers? What? We'll talk about it tomorrow on Locked On Jazz. Tune in.